Hey everybody, what's good? This is Sharrona Reaves. You are listening to These Three Things podcast, and this week we are going to talk about being biracial with Jasmine Jenkins. But before we get into that episode, let's do a recap of last week's episode, and I also want to talk about a couple of people that I want to add to my people I like list, okay? First things first. Let's talk about the self-aware narcissist episode with Leon Walker. Man, you guys had a lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts about Leon, what we talked about in that episode. You guys were just baffled at his upbringing, the things that happened to him, family members touching on him. A lot of you, I really appreciated your compassion for who Leon turned out to become, because of some of the things that happened to him in his childhood, because I felt the same after listening to him. Like, you know, his innocence was clearly snatched from him at a very young age. And while so many people out here have been molested by family members, by people who were not family members, by family friends, by babysitters, we could just run down the gamut. For all of those people who have been able to shake that off and go through life and not become a narcissist, not harm other people, not molest other people, not touch other people. You know, really, I have to say there's a lot of grace on your life, because it doesn't always happen like that for some people. Some people, it's just deeper. Some people are not able to take what others can. And maybe for the period and length of time that these things are happening to them. So I appreciated the compassion that a lot of you shared with me that you felt for Leon. But also, too, on the other side of that, I appreciated the fact that Leon was being honest about the demonic spirit that had overtaken him and that he still fights and deals with today, but is a lot more aware of it through therapy. And we got together and we did an Instagram live on my Instagram page at These Three Things Podcast. And if you guys want to go back and check that out, I encourage you to do so. In that Instagram live, we talked about narcissistic terms like supply, like discard, gaslighting, you name it. We talked about it. Future faking. We talked about all of the terms. So for those of you who are not really familiar with narcissism or hearing about narcissistic people, I encourage you to go back and listen, because you will probably realize that you have known narcissistic people in your life. You didn't know exactly what was going on with them, but you're able to identify as you listen to Leon talk, and he shares in different ways that he functioned in these different terms, like supply and what supply meant to him, and future faking and how he future faked women into believing, and gaslighting and love bombing. He tells in detail on our Instagram live how he carried those specific terms out. So I encourage you to go back and check it out at These Three Things Podcast on Instagram. Like, follow. I always love to hear you guys' feedback. If this is your first time listening to These Three Things Podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at these3thingspodcast@gmail.com. Share your thoughts, share your views, things that you'd love to hear me talk about on the show, guests that you'd love for me to have, people that you know that you believe would be a great guest for my show. I'd love to chat with them and see where it goes. Okay. Last thing for the self-aware narcissist episode that I want to share. All of my listeners who listen to These Three Things podcast on Spotify, there are now questions that I'm leaving at the end of every episode, because I really want to get you guys' feedback and interact with you about what your thoughts were. I have a question after the first episode of The Self-Aware Narcissist with Leon Walker that I want for you guys. If you're listening on Spotify, go answer that question and give me your feedback on what you think. And there will be a question at the end of this episode on Spotify as well on being biracial. Okay, a while back, you guys, I don't even know, maybe a year ago now. It might have been longer than a year ago. I don't remember. But I did an episode on the people that I like. because there were just certain people like in the universe that I'm like, I like these people. Like, I just like what they stand for. And I just wanted to share that because I'm sure as you guys are traveling through life and you're watching television or you're watching a sport or you're reading a book or you're traveling or you're looking at art, there are certain things, certain people that you just like. You don't even know why you like them. And so recently, and I'm not a big football person. Let me just tell you that. I am a former athlete. I have no idea what they're doing in football. I was a basketball player through high school and college, and I coached college basketball. I have no idea what's happening in football. I know when they get a touchdown, a field goal, a first down, and I know what a fourth down means. After that, and that may be a lot. I may know more about football than I think that I know, but I'm not a big football person per se. I could probably count on maybe both of my hands how many times I've sat and just paid attention to a football game from kickoff to the last play. I really lose interest after a while. So for me to talk about these two people that I'm getting ready to talk about, I'm saying all that to say this. I'm not a big football person, but somehow these two brothers are people that I like. Now, the first one is going to be easy because he is everywhere right now, and that is Deion Coach Prime Sanders. Man, let me tell y'all. I listen to Deion talk, and I'm like, only a man could say what Deion says about how he deals with his athletes, how he talks to his athletes, how he's honest with his athletes, how he says the hard thing because life is hard, and sometimes you need to hear the hard thing. Only a man can say that and get away with it. There is not a female coach in coaching that can talk to players and have the expectation and be as raw and as honest as Deion Sanders is and keep their job. Well, maybe 2 or 3 coaches could get away with that. Like Dawn Staley of South Carolina could probably keep it a buck and keep her job. That dude up in Connecticut has definitely kept it a buck for most of his career and has clearly kept his job. And the lady down at LSU, she could probably keep it a buck and keep her job as well. But outside of those 3, I don't know. I mean, it could be fair game depending on, how it all falls out. But for the most part, most female coaches who coach a women's sport cannot really keep it real like male coaches can and be able to maintain their jobs. I grew up in a time as a player where coaches were honest with you about what their expectations are, about what they needed you to get done. If you did not do it, this may not be the school or the university for you. I actually appreciated it because I understood where they were coming from and what the expectation was of me. I have never in my life had a coach get at me, yell at me, cuss at me, fuss at me, and I somehow took that personal. I always knew it was about coaching. I always knew it was about teaching. I always knew it was about an expectation, a standard that we are trying to be at. And if you can't get to the standard, if your little feelings are too tender to understand what we're trying to accomplish here, this isn't the place for you. So when he said that, I was like, yes, what he said. But y'all, I'm not coaching no more. I'm not in coaching anymore. And part of that is probably the reason why. Because I was just way too honest. I said what I felt. And honestly, it was always in love because I'm understanding, especially for the Black athletes. This world ain't going to be the same once you graduate college. You are an athlete on a major campus at a major institution right now, and everybody knows your name, and everybody's cheering for you, and everybody's treating you like you're just the best thing since sliced bread. But baby, when you graduate, when you are no longer in the eye and the cycle of college athletics flips another turn and you are now flipped out and the new group is circled in, ain't nobody thinking about you. You realize how insignificant you are to these people. And now you got to get out here and make a life for yourself. So keep that in mind. But, kids don't learn until they learn. But I do love Deion Sanders for putting it where it needs to be put and saying it where it needs to be said so that these kids understand when they left Colorado that this ain't the place for me because I ain't really trying to go with his brother trying to go. And when they come into Colorado University or University of Colorado, this is the standard here. If I'm about that life, then I can come and play for this guy. And if I'm not, I need to find another school to go to. So yes, Deion, Coach Prime Sanders is a person that I like. Now, second guy. I don't know how. Well, I know how. I was watching, I think maybe TD Jakes or somebody on my YouTube. And when that sermon went off that I was listening to, Shannon Sharp Club Shay Shay show came on, and it was with Stephen A. And I just sat down and watched. And I have had friends tell me that you got to watch Club Shay Shay. It is so good. Shannon Sharp is so good. And I used to watch Shannon more often when he and Skip were together, but I just hated the energy that I got between he and Skip, that I just kind of stopped watching the show because I was like, oh, I don't really care for Skip. But I sat down this day to just watch his interview with Stephen A. Smith. And man, can I tell y'all, I love me some Shannon Sharp. Like, I am so inspired by him. I'm so inspired by his interviewing style, the way he interviews, the studying and the work that you can tell that he's done into learning more about the people that he's sitting down and talking to. I think his questions are thoughtful. I think his questions are insightful. I think that he can talk about sports, but he can definitely talk about all things in all walks of life. I love the fact that he is a good old Southern boy. That he is a good old Southern man. I like me some Shannon. I do. I like me some Club Shay Shay. And I got to tell you, that interview with Stephen A. Smith and the fact that Stephen A. put this brother on after everything fell apart with Shannon and Skip. Stephen A., you can say what you want about Stephen A., but Stephen A. is for the brother. Stephen A. is for helping other people that look like him get to places where he is. And I am for that too. Because oftentimes, many of us will be going through seasons in life where we may be in a struggle, and we'll have friends that have really great jobs that will not even pick up the phone and call you and be like, hey, bro, can I help you? How can I help you, man? Hey, sis, how can I help you? I know you out here looking. What can I do? Who can I call? Let's see what we got where I'm working and see how I can help you get on. And so I appreciate Stephen A. I appreciate Stephen A. for looking out for Shannon. I love Shannon. I've been watching all of his episodes and just sitting back and just like smiling and laughing at his silliness. I watched his Club Shay Shay with Coach Prime. I thought it was hilarious. So add Shannon Sharp to my list of people that I like. So now let's get into today's episode, Being Biracial with Jasmine Jenkins. This is an interesting conversation because so many times in the Black community, we have feelings and thoughts about biracial kids. I have known people and been around people who have made comments like biracial kids are some of the most confused people. They don't know, they don't have a place. There's just so much said about being biracial that I wanted to have a conversation with someone who is biracial. Jasmine's mother is white, her father is Black, and she is sharing her story with us about being biracial on These Three Things podcast. Enjoy. For almost a century, Scarrett Bennett Center's historic Gothic campus has been a choice location for dream weddings in Nashville. Consistently rated one of Music City's best places to get married by The Knot, Wedding Wire, and Toast of Nashville, Scarrett Bennett Center offers 3 timeless venues for your wedding: a 20-person elopement chapel, a 300-person wedding chapel, and a breathtaking garden. From rehearsal to reception, Scarrett Bennett Center is ready to help you create the intimate, historic wedding of your dreams. Visit our website at scarrettbennett.org/weddings for more information. Hey, this is Sharrona Reaves. You are listening to These Three Things podcast, and I am with my guest, which I've already told you guys I'm super excited to talk to. This is a conversation and a thought that is had in our community all the time, and I'm so happy that my friend Jasmine Jenkins is here today to talk to us about being biracial. So, Jasmine, welcome to These Three Things podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first podcast, so I think this is an important topic to touch on, and I'm happy I can be here.
I am too, Jasmine. Like, growing up just through the years, people that I know, we always talk about like what the experience is like for someone biracial. And then, you know, you don't really know until you have a conversation with someone. And it depends on how you were brought up as how you perceive being biracial. And, you know, you had shared with me like some of the experiences that you had. And I'm like, Jasmine, this is a podcast episode. Like, this is an episode. We got to talk about this. So I'm glad that you decided to do it. I really am. And so let's get into it. Okay. So Jasmine, tell my listeners about yourself, where you came from, which one of your parents is, you know, the white or the black parent. Just give my listeners some backstory on your upbringing.
Yeah, of course. So I'm from Southern California. I was born and raised in Irvine, California. It's in Orange County, maybe about 10, 15 minutes away from the beach. Predominantly a white and Asian area. My mother is Mexican, Italian, and German. But she was raised predominantly by her mother, who was German. And my father is black. They went to high school together. They grew up in Orange County together. So it was only right that my parents stayed in Orange County and raised us there. I loved it. It was safe. Irvine is one of the safest cities in the country. It's a little bubble. Had a lot of friends, a lot of families with kids, just a park on every, you know, corner, big houses, a lot of trees. It was great. I had a really good childhood. I never really ventured outside of California young. It was, you know, you stay where you know and who you know.
Right.
And even though my parents separated when I was young, they still held, you know, those values at core.
Yes.
And so that's all I knew growing up. That's all I knew was Orange County and the beach. And I never really saw anyone who looked like me. If I did, it was in passing or it was in a different city, but I wasn't really like raised with anyone who looked like me. I was, you know, the only black person in my household when my parents separated. And I kind of just chalked it up to, you know, everyone tells me I'm pretty for a black girl, or, you know, I speak really well. And so I was like, oh, compliments, you know,
Right.
Well, why would I think that that was negative?
Right.
And so it was an interesting transition as I was growing up, hearing the same things from elementary school to middle school to high school. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, like no one's saying anything about it. And well, it's really nice to hear. But I knew it felt different because, you know, I still didn't see anyone who looked like me.
Right.
It wasn't until I got to college. You know, it's a melting pot when you go to college.
Right.
It's someone from everywhere, a different walk of life, background, different values and opinions. And so I get to college and, you know, it's the whole I'm too black to be hanging out with the white people and I'm too white, you know, washed to hang out with the black people. And so I was like, well, where do I fit in?
Yeah.
It was really hard. And thankfully I had sports. Otherwise, you know, I wouldn't have had my community.
You were a student athlete, right?
I was. I played softball.
Played softball.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look like a softball player.
Which is funny, too, because now the sport is evolving.
True.
But before, again, I was one of maybe like 2 or 3 black people
Yes.
in the whole tournament.
Yes. Like, I really think in like maybe the last 8 to 10 years, softball, you see a lot of black girls in softball now, but most of my college experience, all white girls.
All white girls. There's still schools, I'm not going to name them, but there are still a few college universities that only recruit certain types of softballers that look a certain way.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that stereotype goes far and deep. But yeah, even in that sport alone, like everything I was doing was a predominantly different culture or race.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing that made me, you know, stick out like a sore thumb in the black community.
Yeah.
You know, I have 2 left feet. I don't know how to dance.
Okay. So let me ask you
let's
something.
back up.
Well, no, because I want to, when you say like, okay, so growing up through elementary, middle, and high, so were there just not a lot of black people that attended your school, or just like, were you just not around a lot of black people just in general?
Both. So my mother's side of the family was who I was around, mostly because I lived with my mom. And so, everyone in the family was, you know, German and white, or a little bit of Mexican, but they looked white. And so of course, my mom being comfortable with that, that's who she put us around.
Right.
And then on top of that, in Orange County, now it's growing. But before, when I was younger, if you looked different, meaning if you weren't Caucasian or Asian and you were in Irvine, you would get followed. You know, people would call the cops on you and they would be like, where you don't live here. You couldn't possibly live here. You know, you're in the next city over. You've gotten lost. And so I had a few of those experiences if I was like walking around alone, but not enough for me to like go home and tell my mom because she never talked about it. So I was never like, oh, this is something that I'm going to bring up randomly or on my own.
Right.
So if it wasn't being talked about, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I also felt some type of way. I just didn't know how to explain it or put it into words.
Okay. So during those years, I know, you know, your parents are split up now. How much time during the elementary, middle, and high school years did you spend with your dad or his side of the family?
So my dad was supposed to pick me up every weekend. That was the court-ordered arrangement. But because I played softball competitively, I was playing about 10 games a weekend.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't seeing him in his environment or with his side of the family.
Yeah.
Unless they came to watch me play softball. And again, my whole dad's side of the family was like, why are you playing softball? Like, we know nothing about that.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. Come run track, come play basketball. That's what we're doing over here. And because I was like, well, my mom's paying for me to play softball and I'm good at it and scouts are looking at me, he couldn't really relate and he didn't take the time to come watch me. So it pushed me away to like not try the basketball on the track and everything else. So we would butt heads. But again, my parents had me in high school. They were young. So me as a child myself, though, I didn't understand that dynamic. I'm like, come watch me play. I'm so good at this sport. Yeah. He just couldn't relate. So I never really went to my dad's side of the environment or family as a young kid.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about college. So you get to college. You've grown up in Irvine. Irvine's predominantly white, Asian, see a few black people here and there, but that's been your life experience. Now where did you go to college, Jazz?
I went to the University of Nevada, Reno.
Okay.
So Northern Nevada.
Yeah, so you're in Reno. I've been to Reno.
Yeah.
Can you believe I've been to Reno but never Vegas?
What? Well, you know what? It's so funny. People are like, oh, Vegas? Initially when I'm like, I went to Nevada. And I'm like, no, Reno.
Yeah.
They're like, where's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, by Tahoe. Literally an hour away from Sacramento.
Yes.
So it's far from Vegas.
Yeah,
it's about 8 hours.
You don't even think Nevada's that big.
No.
Yeah, but it is.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so going to Reno, college, freshman year. Talk about it.
It was wild. So, and I just have to do this as a tribute. I had offers left and right for softball so young, and I committed so young. And Nevada was recruiting me. I had no idea where this place was. I thought it was UNLV as well. And so the hitting coach was watching every game that weekend that I had. And I heard him coughing in the stands, and I'm like, what's going on? The umpire had to call timeout. They called the medical team. The recruiting coach for Nevada was internally bleeding the weekend he was watching me and he was recruiting. And he literally would not let them put him on a stretcher until he was like, I need to talk to Jasmine Jenkins. I need her to commit. I'm not going to the hospital until she commits to Nevada Reno.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, me as like a sophomore, junior in high school, I'm like, okay. Like, you need to go to the hospital. And so he was in the hospital. My family and I went to go visit him, and he was like, we need you at this program. Like, you can turn this around. And because of that, I committed. And that was the definition of that program there. It was loyalty and family, and they really believed in me. So
that's awesome.
I just had to do that quick
shout out Reno, right? Softball.
Right. But yeah, it was, that's what set the tone for me.
Yeah.
So then I go see the campus. It's this beautiful campus. It's so long. It flows very nicely, and I just was obsessed. And the girls were great, a great team, great program. I really felt family oriented. But when I arrived, I looked around and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's somebody from everywhere here. Yeah. And I quickly came to realize that they recruited majority of their athletes from Southern California. Yeah. And so it was wild. I'm seeing people from LA and Orange County and San Diego, everywhere that was around me.
Right.
And I had no idea I had all these athletes.
Yeah.
So our basketball team, our football team, our soccer team, our softball team, everyone was from Southern California. So it's like, okay, great. Like they have the same experience as me, right? That's what I'm thinking. And so I'm thinking, these are my people. This is my family. But then I'm also looking around and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's people that look like me. And they're playing the sports I'm playing, and they're wearing their hair how I wear my hair. And, you know, we can talk about the same fashion. And so it was nice that it felt like a community. But I also, there's another side of it, right? There's the other side of like, oh, you're doing this and I've never seen that. Or you're saying these things that I've never heard. Or your experiences may not sound like mine.
Right.
So even though like we look alike and there's certain things that we have alike, there's also so many more or equally of things that are different.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how to go about this. So of course, me being young still, I'm just blurring out like, what is that?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And so I'm sure I rubbed people the wrong way, but it was so innocent.
Yeah.
I was just curious, and I've never had that experience. And I think some people took it as, you know, me wanting to know more, and some people took it as me being rude.
Yeah.
And so that was difficult to navigate.
Yeah. Did you find that Black people were mad at you because you didn't know more about Black things, Black culture, Black, like,
Yeah.
look, so let's just talk about hair. Cause you know, Black women, our hair is like that's a whole podcast episode.
Right.
You've probably grown up doing your hair a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get around other Black women and you're like, they're doing something completely different.
Yeah.
Did you find that Black women were offended? Other Black women were offended? Or did you feel like they were, girl, let me teach you and tell you what's what?
So there was two different types of encounters I would face. There was one where I would get other Black people would look at me like, you know, she doesn't know any better, like, or, you know, the whole colorism thing of like, oh, she's light skinned, she thinks that she can get away with it, or it was just, they had this pre-notion of me already that I essentially maybe seemed entitled, and so they're like, we want nothing to do with that, you know, we're going to keep her over there. But then I had a group of girls who embraced it. They're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I was their little project in a sense of like, we can teach her and we can show her. And so I'm thankful for that group because they really took me in. I mean, yeah, my mom didn't know what to do with my hair. She straightened it. When that Japanese straightening first came out, I was the first one in that salon chair, chemically straightened, and my hair never curled. It still doesn't curl. And so all I knew how to do was straighten my hair. I didn't know how to do my baby hairs. I didn't know anything about gel. I didn't know.
Baby hair is important in our community. You do realize, right?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I, straightened my hair and put on a headband. That's all I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And so when I got to college, they're like, you don't do your hair. I'm like, I did it this morning. And so, yeah, there was a lot of little things, big things I just had no idea about.
Yeah.
No idea.
So how did that make you feel? And that's, I know that's such a therapist question. So how did that make you feel, Jasmine? But like, seriously, like coming to that environment and things being so different and recognizing that I don't really know, like, I don't know. Like, how did that make you feel?
I was angry at first. I mean, okay, so let's back up a little bit. So at first I was like, okay, a group that'll embrace me, that'll show me, I'm so excited. But then it was like more and more every day of things that I had no idea about. And it became a little overwhelming of like, wow, like for the past 18, 19 years, I have no idea about this other part of who I am. And then I got angry. I got angry at my mom. You know, you knew we're having a biracial child. Why didn't you teach yourself? Why didn't you push for my, dad or my grandma?
Did you ask her these things?
I did. I was a very bold kid.
Oh, I love it.
I pushed back a lot as a kid. And that's a whole nother, thing. But I always questioned things and I always, wanted to walk my own path. And so I got on the phone real quick and I was like, Mom, like, did you know this? And did you know that? And she got defensive. And we had a falling out, and we didn't talk for a while. I think she met my anger with anger, and I'm sure that stemmed from, whatever her and my dad went through. But, yeah, I was very angry. And then it trickled down to me being angry at my dad. Well, you can't keep putting that on my mom.
Yeah.
Because you had a part in that, too. You could have picked me up. You could have taken me to lunch after a game and talked to me about it. And he kept, just saying, like, well, you didn't want to learn. well, how am I supposed to know if I want to learn or not if you don't even introduce it?
Right.
So it was a lot of pushback, which made me even more angry because no one was meeting me with compassion or let's learn now together. And so I was relying on other 19-year-olds that I was going to school with. And my boyfriend at the time, he was Black and he played basketball, and I had to rely on his family. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas that I was in college, I went back home with him. And I was very thankful for that experience that they gave me. They took me, you know, and at first they were a little hesitant because they did not believe me.
Yeah.
Because I would go in, they'd be like, oh, do you want to eat? Are you hungry? Oh, I don't eat ribs. I don't eat, you know what I mean? I don't eat these things because no one made them.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like I was crazy. But no, they definitely took me in and helped me and made it a little less painful. So I'm grateful for them, but it was hard.
Okay, so let's talk about mom and dad for a second. Your mom, like as I'm listening to you tell it, I'm thinking, you know, as your mom, she's probably thinking, Jasmine, I gave you a good life. Like you lived in a safe place. Like she's thinking all of the things that I gave you.
Right.
Which are all good things, not understanding that at some point Jasmine's going to run into the other side of her.
Right.
And, you know, this big awakening to, you know, who the other side of you is and how you're perceived out here in the world. When did you realize that? I mean, did you always grow up knowing that people perceive me as a Black girl? Or did it really become like, I'm a Black woman out here to people. Like I've been raised with this, you know, German white woman, but to all these people, I'm a Black woman. Like when did the revelation like happen for you?
You know what? I still struggle with that. Because growing up, I was this cute mixed kid, you know, with this like curly hair or like straight hair. And so everyone's like, oh, so cute. Like I was a doll. Even today I deal with that. I mean, some people look at me and they're like,
that's true.
You're just so cute. And like, they don't put me, and I'm very passive. I'm very quiet. I feel like I take up a lot of space. You know, those are traits that I've had to overcome and I'm still, you know, healing from. But I think because I belittle myself a little bit in certain environments, it's more acceptable. So I don't feel like they treat me or see me as anything less than them, which is wild because it shouldn't be that way.
Well, looking at you, and I say that you're perceived as a Black woman, but technically I wouldn't really know what you were.
Yeah. I mean, people come up to me all the time, they're like, are you Hawaiian? Are you Filipino?
I can totally see Hawaiian. I can totally see Hawaiian.
Yeah.
I can see a little even Hispanic in there a little bit. Like you may be like Latino or Puerto Rican even. I see Puerto Rican.
So I never really, like I've never had come up to, I mean, unless they already knew I was Black. I would never come up to anyone. No one would ever come up to me and say like, oh, you're Black. Yeah. That's never been my experience until I say it or they already knew it. Yeah. And I don't know how it would be if people just perceived me as that. Sometimes I'm like, would it be easier? Even though that comes with its own battles? I don't know. Yeah. And so it's so hard. But to be honest with you, like today, I feel like I'm more comfortable with being around white people than anybody else just because I know how to deal with the racism. I know how to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with the Black community thinking or already putting the notion on me that I think I'm better than them when I don't, I don't know.
Is that what you've been met with primarily from the Black community?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They think I'm like playing a game or it's a front or there's no way. Or they think I'm doing it as like, not a fetish, but like something that's there's no way you can be curious about it. There's no way you want to learn about this. Like you've had all of this and this is where you come from and all these other things. And I'm like, no, that's still part of me.
I don't think that your mom probably ever considered that was necessary for you.
Agreed.
You know, and not in a bad way. It was just like you didn't know, she didn't know.
Right. And that was the third level of, I went from like being excited to angry to like a realization of like, yes, my parents did the best they could with what they had and what they knew. And even to this day, it's just a topic that we just don't really touch base on because it gets really hated and emotional. But I know how she feels about it now. She knows how I feel about it now. We kind of just keep it at that. But yeah, I had to come to a realization of like, she just didn't know. And even though there's a little part of me that wish she cared enough to do research and try, she just didn't. and that's just what I have to chalk it up to. But she did put me in positions to learn from other people, and I have to be appreciative for that.
Yeah.
So
can you identify, can you express into words, like, what was the root of your anger when you were in your anger stage? What's the verbiage that says, this is the reason why I'm angry?
It's tough. I think that was at a point I realized, like, I was just boxed in as like a softball player. Nothing less, nothing more. There was nothing to me other than softball. And so when I went to college and realized all these people have so much more to them and who they were and where they came from, I think I was angry because I was like, that could have been me, or that could be me, but I have no one around me like embracing that.
Yeah.
So I think I just resorted to just being so angry.
Yeah, because you felt like they were more layered than you, more life experience than you, like more used to more diversity than you, exposed to more so they can make different decisions than you.
Like the pride of passing traditions down and passing just daily activities I had no idea about. Like, no one did that with me.
Yeah.
So it was just, I felt lost for a little bit.
Yeah. And so then our community, and when I say our community, I'm talking about our Black side. You know, well, y'all already know me on the show, but Mama Black, Daddy Black. But I'm just saying, so the Black side of you, the Black community, who doesn't know your story, makes assumptions about you now.
Yeah.
Because you don't know that, or she thinks she's this. And then, you know, it's hard to be light-skinned sometimes in the Black community because I feel like it's getting better.
Yeah.
But it's hard because there's a stigma that comes, oh, so you think you pretty, or you think you this, or you think you that, or y'all don't have no troubles, or y'all don't know what it's like to be Black, or y'all ain't really Black.
Right.
You know, all of that. So you're getting othered by the other half of you. And it's only based on, I guess, the girls who were really interested in kind of like, or hearing your story and knowing, listen, it ain't because I don't want to be down. I just don't know to be down. I don't know what being down is.
And even means, looks like.
Yeah.
So, it's either, you know, deal with that or deal with being told, like, I'm pretty for a Black girl, I'm smart for a Black girl, or I'm.
And you do know that that's not a compliment.
No, that's not a compliment.
Yeah.
I learned that in college at 19.
Yes.
That was racism.
Yes.
And so, I just had to do a lot of work with that.
Yeah.
A lot. It made me very angry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, join the club. Anybody who knew me at Fresno State, after I took my first African American Studies course, listen, I was militant. Like, white people, please do not talk to me for the next century. Like, just so many things that you learn, and, you know, just being away from home in college in general. But then when you start to get educated to like the rest of the world, and I, like you know, I came from a small town and went to college in California, and was just exposed to a lot as well. And I do think that basketball kind of exposed me to some things, but not as much as what I experienced when I went out to Fresno. And then I ended up taking this, like I said, African American Studies course and learning all the things about my history.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, learning about us being slaves and how we picked cotton and all of these things, right? But not knowing that we discovered this and we created that and we did this and we did that and we were part of this and we're the reason why this is what it is today. Yeah. You don't tell me those things about myself. You tell me that I'm a slave.
Right.
You tell me that, you know, Martin Luther King came along and did X, Y, and Z for us, and, you know, Harriet Tubman freed us from slaves, from being slaves. But you don't really tell me the whole story of my history. And I think if I can articulate what really had me so angry at white people was the intention behind what you did.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The intention behind what you did. You didn't want me to know.
Right.
You didn't want me to believe in myself or grow up thinking that I'm just as good as you. You're no better than me. My people did this and you enslaved us. Right. My people invented this while you were enslaving us. Like, we were bad out here. You know, you tried to destroy us as people. And we came and educated you and taught you how to do certain things. And that was the anger with me. That was the first time. And I grew up in a community where I had, in high school, everybody's friends, most people are cool with everybody in high school. And I was cool with, so many different nationalities and races of people in high school. And that was the first time that like it darkened me for a while because I'm like, y'all not good people. Like, why would you want me just to think that I was nothing more than a slave? Right. Why would you want to get such a head start on who you are and put me at such a disadvantage as to who I think that I am? And now I got to play catch up, so I'm equating all of that. And I'm saying all of that to say, I can imagine how you would feel now going into college, learning so much more about all the things that you weren't exposed to. Yeah. And now feel like now I got to play catch up because it's so many things I just don't know. Yeah. Where do I take it? How do I take it all in?
Yeah. It definitely instilled a sense of insecurity in me because I'm like, oh, I know who I am. I know what I want to do. I'm in college. I'm doing the things I want. But yeah, then it going to, well, do I really know who I am? I haven't even tapped into anything, my potential or anything. So, yeah, it was rough. But it's funny that you say that because I never got to a point of being angry at like white people. Yeah. It was like, I just put it all on my mom. Because again, I still battle with like walking into the room and being like, oh, I know how to navigate this. Yeah. And that's not healthy. That's not right. But it's just what I was used to. And it was just, I don't know. It's wild now that I'm like realizing that.
Yeah. So. Well, I totally get, because I hope I didn't sound like I thought you were mad at all white people. No. I was mad at all white folks, Jasmine. I was mad at all white people.
The community, like, I don't know, because when I was in school learning about racism, like, everyone would look at me and be like, oh, well, like, poor you. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, me. Like, because it was just me.
Cotton picker.
Yeah. Exactly. But I don't know. I don't know.
We pick cotton. Now it's funny. But at the time, it was not funny. No. It was not funny, but yeah.
Like they would look at me like I had the answers. Like I was there. Like, I'm sorry, I did not know.
Exactly. We didn't participate. No. We did not. Ancestors, we are not laughing at you, ancestors. No. We are laughing at a moment of how we're looking back at that and thinking like, because I remember that look too, Jasmine, like, oh, y'all were slaves. Poor slaves. We were not slaves. We were enslaved.
Right.
So let's just put that out there. We didn't have a choice. You are listening to These Three Things podcast with Sharrona Reaves and Jasmine Jenkins on being biracial. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to this episode of These Three Things podcast. Here's how you can stay connected after the show. Follow at These Three Things Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. On Facebook at These Three Things P. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and if you like what you've been hearing, leave a review. You say that your boyfriend in college was black. Mm-hmm. Okay, so talk about that. Was this your first boyfriend? Was this your first guy or like?
So I was with somebody in high school. So I was with somebody in high school who was black, but he was in the same position as me where like, he liked skateboarding and we liked the same, rock music.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, he was black, but I think we kind of just navigated towards each other because we were both black, but liked the same odd, things. Yes. So that wasn't really anything out of the ordinary. And then I, get to college and I meet a basketball player who, whole long story on the side, but we get together like my first week of college and he kind of just claims me and everyone just associates me with him and me, and I let him. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. And so, I moved in with him my first week of college, was with him all 4 years of college, every holiday. He played basketball. Basketball's year round, as you know. So when he got to go home, he was like, we're going home. And we would go to his family's house.
Yeah. And where was he from?
He's from LA.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I'll go back home. But he, he's from Crenshaw.
Yeah.
So it's the heart of LA.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been over there before I met him. It was funny too because I got into LA a day before him because he was meeting me from a basketball tournament. And I called his mom and I was like, oh, I'm going to come over and see you guys before he gets here. And she was like, okay, well, what time are you coming? Because it's getting late. And I'm looking at my phone like, it's 3. What does she mean it's getting late? And I'm like, well, maybe 5, 6. She's like, honey, you can't come over here when the sun goes down. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And so she was like, yeah, no, we don't go outside at dark, you know. And I had no idea what she's talking about. And so I pull up at like 5:30 and she's mad because now she has to go outside and it's dark and it's just not a safe area. And so a lot of those moments.
Yeah, because she's thinking if this girl ends up getting killed over here, her parents are going to kill us.
Yeah.
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 And you didn't know. And so now when you look at that and think about that, okay, so I live in California, I live in LA, and I have never even gone on to this other side of LA. Like, that's almost like living in my town and not going to Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
like,
seriously,
I live in
same thing.
I've never gone to Nashville. Yeah.
But it's just not safe. So I understand why my, parents, sheltered us. But I think balance is just important.
Yeah.
It's okay to expose your children at the level that they're at for certain subjects. You can't act like things don't exist.
Yeah.
That wipes out everything.
Yeah.
And so, it was a lot of learning.
So his family introduced you to a lot of the Black experience.
Yeah.
And do you remember the first time you had good soul food?
It's so funny because
And did you even like it?
That's the thing. I grew up on like fish. I can't cook to save my life. I love things that aren't seasoned. That's what I'm, used to. My child, literally, I put salt and pepper on stuff and he's like, it's spicy. And I'm like, I just feel so bad for him. But no, I tried at first. I was like, no, I'm not hungry because I wasn't used to it. And they were like, no, you don't come over here and say you're not hungry. You're going to eat.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I didn't want to seem rude. So I tried everything. I do not like red meat to this day.
Yeah.
I don't like pork ribs. I don't. So it was tough. I'm like, there's many times where I'm like, can you take my plate to my boyfriend? Because I didn't want them to see me throwing it away. And I think it was just maybe because I was exposed to it later in life. Like I already had my taste buds and I already knew what I liked. So it was harder. Yeah. And I didn't want to be rude. I was trying so hard to not be disrespectful, but I also was like, I need to stay true to myself.
Yeah. Good luck to that though. Because in the Black community, we mad if you don't eat.
No.
We would get upset.
They all looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, you know what? But I'm here. I'm trying and I'm here and I will try it all and I will embrace it all. But yeah, no, I love mac and cheese. I love some mashed potatoes. I love everything else. I love all the sides. Yeah. I just can't do red meat.
So then in those moments where you felt like, okay, I just don't have the taste buds for this. Like, I just don't, did you feel away or did you just kind of like suck it up and be like, this is me and I'm going to just keep it moving?
No, I was raised to be very pleasing. You speak when you're spoken to and you're just there. So no, that trickled over to that too. I kept trying it and I kept doing more. I was getting further and further away from myself, trying to find myself, if that made sense.
Yes. Because
I was like, no, I have to embrace this. This is what they do. I have to do it. And it just kind of spiraled. Yeah. In all aspects. So, yeah.
So you're dating the Black guy on the basketball team. You guys date for a while.
Yeah, we dated all 4 years of college. We got engaged, everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so have you dated other men besides Black men?
Yeah, actually... after him, I dated another Black man for a little while. And then after that, I was like, I think I'm done. And I ended up marrying someone who was Jewish. And now that we are separated and divorced, I am now seeing someone who's Italian. Yeah. But it's wild, too, because, like, my mom is German, Mexican, Italian. She's, a lot. Yeah. But she was raised predominantly white. So I have all of these things, in me. But I'm still, like, when I was with somebody who's Jewish, I'm with somebody who's Italian, like, I'm still learning those cultures as well. Yeah. And so it's like there's just so much to people in a community. And now I'm, like, in love with traditions. And I try and pass that down to my kids. And so. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you know what? At the end of it all, that's all that really matters, is what you pass down to your children.
Exactly.
The family that you decide to make with your family
Mm-hmm.
is the only thing that really matters. You know, I had a therapist tell me that in my early 20s, and y'all know on the show, I'm big about therapy. I always talk about therapy. And there have been like patches in my life when maybe I'm transitioning from the high school girl to now the college, and I'm away from home and I'm trying to figure out who I am, into once I've graduated college and now I'm out here in the world and trying to figure out what that looks like for me. And I had a therapist tell me during that season of my life when I had graduated high school and I'm now in college trying to figure out who I am. She was like, well, because in my mind, I'm still trying to execute all these things that I heard in my household, but they don't necessarily fit me in all areas. And she was like, well, Sharrona, the beauty of it is now that you're an adult, you get to choose.
Yeah.
You can take what you want from your upbringing and you can throw the rest of it in the trash if it doesn't work for you. You get to say what happens in your life. Jasmine, that was like so liberating to me.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing. Why didn't my brain think of that? But just in that moment to tell me that you have the freedom, Sharrona, this is your big life, honey.
Yeah.
Do with it what you want. Now, I wish I had made some different decisions once I came to that revelation.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Like, and that's why I felt like it was so important to share your story, Jasmine, because I think that those of us who haven't been around very many biracial people, we have an assumption of when you don't know black things, it's because you didn't want to know them.
Right.
Because you didn't, you don't care to know them because you like being white, because you want to be white.
Right.
Sometimes it's just about exposure. And by the time I'm raised and I'm out here in the world, I've been exposed to this. It's what I'm used to. It's what I'm comfortable. Like you said, you're more comfortable around white people than you are black people. And me, I'm like, what? And I know you know what I'm saying? I'm like, what? But I want you to kind of elaborate on that just a little bit. Yeah, talk about that.
And it's because I'm used to racism. That's so horrible to say, but I know how to navigate a room full of white people who say certain things, because in my experience, 9 times it's a loud bark, but not a hard bite. So, I'll let certain things, play out and I shouldn't. But I do. And it's just more of like, you're not going to get me riled up. But it's just something familiar that I've dealt with my whole life. So I know how to navigate.
Yeah.
When it comes to black people, I think I just want to be so accepted so bad.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how to, because it's like I'm trying too hard that I don't know how to navigate that. And also there's more judgment in like what I am doing or don't do, There's certain things that I just don't like. And instead of it being like, that's just what she doesn't like, it's, oh, well, like, because you weren't exposed to it, or you just don't, you don't embrace it, or you don't want to.
Right.
Instead of being like, no, it's just something I don't like. Yeah. And I don't get that pushback from the white community. Yeah. They're just kind of like, oh, okay. They just let it be.
Well, and see, with you just explaining that in one fell swoop, now I get it.
Yeah.
The work that it always takes to constantly try to please or fit in or satiate the black part of you is just a lot.
Yeah.
When I can just be over here, because I know what to do over here.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't think competition is the right word, but I mean, like, it just, when you said that, it resorted back to like social media. Like, I have to take social media breaks, because I feel like there's so many people who put like, this is what you look like, this is what you should be doing, or this is what it should be. Yeah. I'm just not that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. It's hard. I'm still trying to, navigate it. I feel like it'll never be perfect, but, as long as I heal from it, and back to the kids thing too, I think that's when it turned a whole new page for me.
Yeah.
When I had kids,
about your sons.
Yeah. I have 2 boys. They're 5 and 6, and they are black. Their dad is black. I'm black. I have, the German, Italian, and Mexican, but they're mostly black. And so with that, I got nervous, because I'm like, I don't want them to have the same experience I had. And, they're black boys. That's going to be completely different. Yeah. And so that's when I woke up and was like, you know what? I can't be angry. I got to, table that with my parents. And they are around my dad's side of the family way more now than I ever was. And they embrace that. They love that. And they're outgoing, and they love to just be carefree boys. And I love that for them.
Yeah.
And they see different walks of life everywhere now. Like, I make that a point, and they are my legacy. So if I'm not healthy and safe and happy, they're not going to be either.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pass anything down to them that's going to affect them in the long run. So, you know, my parents are great grandparents. And of course they're older and they know more now. So I allow them that space to have that relationship with my kids. And it's just amazing now.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Because, you know, also, too, while I'm listening to you talk, I think that the funny thing about Black people is that we're different wherever you go. Like the South, we do things in the South that Black people born and raised in LA don't do. Like we just move differently.
And you know what's so funny about that is, like, coming out here to the South for the first time, living out here now, I was like, wow, I don't think I would have had that angry stage.
I agree.
Because Black people in the South, it's so family oriented. Mm-hmm. It's so, we want you to be on our team.
Yep.
You know, we add to the team. You add value. It's why I've never experienced that before. And yeah, down here, the door's open and, you know, there's always food on the table and you come as you are. And it's nice that I'm experiencing. I wish I would have had that. But now that I am actually experiencing it, I embrace it so much more.
Yeah. Like us Black folks down here in the South would have been proud for you to be our cousin. We'd be like, come on, Jazz. This is our cousin Jazz. She's from California.
Right.
Because that's how we are here.
Yeah.
Like you said, it adds to the team. You bring value, you know, because you're another look of who we are. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't look like us, but she's us. Yeah. That's us. She's us, you know, so.
Yeah. And I definitely went through that stage of like, okay, I want to be in the kitchen. I want to learn. And, you know, my aunt just taught me how to make peach cobbler. And it was just like the most amazing experience. Because I'm like, okay, I'm a part of something. I'm creating something. Yeah. That's, you know, surrounded by people with love for me, for what we're making. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was just amazing. I'm like, I love being out here.
Yeah.
I do.
And the beauty of it is that you really kind of, you know, liked, if we can go back to like the dating part of the men, is that you've just been open to good love, like love, no matter what.
Yeah.
So now you're dating, you said, what, an Italian?
Yep.
What's that like?
I love it. Look, I can't cook, and I keep finding men that love to cook. So I'm like, it just works.
Spoiled.
That's I'm like an Italian from New York. Ooh. We were making homemade meatballs, lasagna, pizza. No, it's so good. And because I don't cook, I'm like, okay, I'll get the groceries and I'll clean. Yeah. So it's just a balance. And so to be able to be with and just find people who love me for what I, you know, bring to the table, but also the fact that like I'm open and willing to learn and explore. And, you know, I was very much like city rooftop high rise and being in the South now, I'm like, okay, he wants to go on a hike. We're going on a hike. I'm in the nature. You know, I may have, you know, long socks and a long sleeve and a hat and sunglasses on, but I'm out there and I'm hiking. Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just different, but I'm open to it and it's good. And as long as it's good for me and the boys, then it makes sense.
Okay. Last subject. And we're going to get some heat for this subject, Jasmine, but we're going to talk about it.
I feel like I'm already going to get heat for some of the things I'm just so open about. I don't know.
We're going to get some heat for this. Okay, so you have dated white men and Black men, as have I. Mm-hmm. Do we want to talk about our experience and our differences and what our takeaway?
I think we should.
If we want to step on the stick of dynamite and lose a leg.
No, because we've experienced it. So I feel like our experiences semi make us like an expert on it. I mean,
semi.
I mean, some people can't say that they've done that. I don't know.
Okay, let's talk about it. So,
I think I need to start off with like, I think I was just so infatuated with seeing people who looked like me, and then also seeing them that they like were attracted to me, because growing up I was like, oh, these white boys do not like Black girls, and they didn't around me. So that's why I kind of got paired up with the only, you know, Black kid in the school. And then when I got in college, I was like, oh, you're like choosing me, and I know nothing about like I don't do any of that. And so yeah, it was like, okay, you're choosing. It was very much like what happened to me, not what I can control or what I liked or like what mattered to me.
Yes.
So a lot of my early on experiences, even with my kid's father, it was very much like, oh, you chose me. Like, of course I'm going to go with you. Of course I love this. Like, you love me.
Yeah.
And then I had my kids and I'm like, wait. I have to be happy too.
Yeah.
Like, I have to figure out what I actually like.
Right.
Regardless of what I grew up on or didn't grow up on or know now or don't know now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the gateway for me of like, how do I want to be treated Monday through Monday?
Yeah.
What do I want my life to look like Monday to Monday? And how do I want my kids to be raised? That for me was like, okay,
yeah,
this is what sets the tone. So I feel like I had to start there.
And you found what?
I found that because I have 2 boys and I was in survival mode, raising them by myself for the first couple of years, I needed someone to be 10 steps ahead of me. Mm-hmm. I needed someone to, pick up where I lacked. I needed someone to get me out of survival mode. I needed someone to tell me it's okay, I can breathe and relax and turn off my brain for a little bit, and that they would take over and they would just jump in and do it the way that gave me a peace of mind. Yeah. And so I learned, one, that comes with a man who knows who he is and what he wants and is stable in that. So, that looks like you have your life together before I expect you to jump in, to mine or my kids. I need to know that, you're practicing a healthy lifestyle, because if you don't care about yourself, you're not going to care about me. Right. And mine. So I just started kind of creating like this imaginary checklist of like these are the things that make me happy at my best as a person and as a mother. And it trickled down to, my first husband, and he was Jewish. Mm-hmm. I mean, his whole family very much followed a Jewish lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so that was structure. They had traditions and they passed it down. So for me, I'm like, this is great. Mm-hmm. I fully embraced it and, trickled over to my kids. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately that didn't work out. And so now I'm with somebody who's Italian. And again, it's very family oriented. It's the traditions. It's, family is important. It is, first. And so, just to practice what you preach and what you believe in is just huge. Yeah. And so that's what I'm learning.
Yeah. And in a white guy, or let's talk about the gentleman that you're with now. Mm-hmm. He checked all of the boxes for all of the things that the 10 steps ahead, thinking things through.
Yeah. I mean, he will literally wake up in the morning and be like, okay, or the night before, what's tomorrow's schedule? What's today's schedule? What do you have going on? What do the boys have going on? This is what I have going on, but I can alter it if you need me here, or there. It's very much a team. Mm-hmm. It's what's best for the family. He'll plan, a trip that we can all go on. And then if it's like, okay, we need a date night, then we find a babysitter. Yeah. Like, it's very simple, very simple. And it's just nice to have that peace of mind of like, I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing this with somebody who actually wants to do this. And who's on my team, and we like better each other and we lift each other up, and it's just nice.
And I'm nodding my head because, and like I said, I'm stepping on a stick of dynamite and I'm already knowing it. And I'm just going to lose the leg in this one and just speak my experience. Right. If I can just speak my experience, because we're talking about it. And you've dated black men, you've dated white men.
Yes.
And I found that a lot of things that you said was my experience as well. I'm not saying that a white man is better than a black man. I'm not saying that. No. I'm just saying that what I experienced with the white guy that I dated was someone who was always thinking like ahead of what we needed, or like would literally be in my home if I was working, and he would come and visit me and look around and think of things that I needed, or just notice something that I didn't have and just buy it. And just and not the cheap version. Like, I'm going to buy you, like, so this is going to last.
What's going to last. Yep. What's going to actually help you.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. The thoughtfulness of that. The same with my kids. Let's go to this amusement park. Let's go to this city and visit.
And
let's go.
Including them. Yes. Not making them feel like there's something extra or a burden or.
Correct. Yeah. And I'm not saying that any brothers did that either. I'm like, first of all, I wouldn't date you if you didn't treat my kids well.
Right. Yeah. Number one.
Yeah. Number one. But I'm just speaking on the experience that I had, like, as you said, like as far as taking care of his health and making sure that he's healthy and like how he's eating and things like that, and exposing me to new ways of taking care of myself and my body and how I eat. Yeah. It was a lot of things that I liked that I, and not to say that there aren't black men out there that are doing the exact same thing. I had not experienced it with a black man, but I'm just saying those are things that I noted when I was in the relationship with the white guy that I liked. Yeah. I like that you're always thinking. I like that you like structure too. I like that you are planning ahead. You're thoughtful. You're a flower sender. Yes. You're a family guy. Yeah. Like a team player and knows how to play his position and doesn't try. And, I had this, big career at that time that I was dating him, and it wasn't like that's her thing. Yeah. We're not in competition. No. We're not trying to outdo each other. Like I show up and I respect her at her stuff. Yeah. She shows up and she respects me at my stuff. And the support, and I appreciated it. So, again, brothers, please do not email me and say that I'm putting brothers down, because I am not. I'm just saying that what you just said, I have experienced too. And I'm not saying that's all white men, because there's some white dudes out here that's trash now. Just like, in every culture. Yeah. We can pick some Mexicans and Asians that's trash. Yeah. Like,
But that's what I love about this podcast. Like, we can talk about it. We know that this is our experience. Yes. We know there are different experiences. And come on. Like, let's talk about it. Yes. Because we understand that we're not limited to this experience. This is just what we've come to learn about ourselves and what has benefited, us and our children at the place that we're at in life. Yes. And that's all we can do.
Yeah. Because I came to the situation with him, dating him, with all these preconceived notions about white men.
Yeah. That's me too. That's why I never started off dating them. Yeah. Because I was like, oh, no, that's not for me.
Yeah. But it wasn't what I
need to be with somebody who is like me. Yeah. Even though I'm still trying to figure that out.
And really, what is like me?
Right. That part.
You know, and at the essence of it all, like when we get down to like just really like the bottom, like if we go all the way down to all of this stuff that we're talking about and get all the way down up under the dirt and up under the roots and all, is love. Yeah. Yeah. It's just love. Period. Love.
And I think COVID kind of like opened that up. Like, where do I want to go home at night? Who do I want to be around? Like, if I had to be stuck in the house for another 2 years, like, that's what matters. Yeah. The people I can wake up to and not feel like I'm taking up space, that like I'm a burden, like what I come with is too much. I just want to have safe space where like I'm loved and I can love. And we're just happy making memories.
No matter what your skin complexion looks like.
No matter what. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what it's all really rooted in. And I think that, just the conversation that you've shared, Jazz, is going to be like so good for people to maybe now when they meet someone who's biracial that doesn't have all of the like soul traits that they feel like you should have. Yeah. Have an idea that maybe because that's just the way she was brought up, you know what I'm saying? Or her experience has been different than mine. And, and move with grace toward other people, because I have definitely, I had a coworker who always was like, biracial people, some of the most confused people in the world. They just the most confused people. They don't know if they black. They don't know if they white. And I used to sit and listen to her. And in my mind, I'd be like, I've never really thought that. Like, I've never really gave that much thought to biracial people choosing who they are, thinking all of those things, because, you're both of those things. Yeah. And maybe more one than the other just because of exposure. But at the end of the day, so like I said, it's all love. I just appreciate you coming on and talking about it, Jazz, because I feel like it's going to be a conversation that people really want to hear and understand how life is processed for you.
Yeah. I love it. I'm happy I'm here. I'm like, now that we're talking about it, I have like 1,000,001 stories that I totally like suppressed or, haven't thought about in a while. But it's so funny because like now I can think about them and I'm like, oh, like I don't do that anymore, or, it doesn't make me feel that way anymore. So I think this is therapeutic. So I appreciate you.
So Jasmine, thank you for coming on these 3 things and talking about growing up biracial, your experiences, and sharing it with my listeners. Is there anything else that you want to share before we get out of here?
No, thank you. I appreciate you for trusting me to come on here and, speak my truth, and I feel good about this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I do too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am Sharrona Reaves. I am with Jasmine Jenkins. I'll be right back with these 3 things. Okay, everybody. I got a question for you. If you are a frequent listener or a new listener of These 3 Things podcast, why haven't you left a review yet? I need for you on Apple Podcast and now on Spotify. Leave a review of this episode and tell me what you loved or didn't love. I can't wait to read your response. Thanks. Hey, this is Sharrona Reaves. You are listening to These 3 Things podcast. I am with Jasmine Jenkins. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode on being biracial. And now it is time for these 3 things. Number 1, the comfort zone. I'm not going to lie to y'all. There were moments when I was listening to Jasmine's story that I really wanted to judge Jasmine's mom. And I was thinking things like, you're raising a black child. How do you not expose her to her blackness? But after we finished recording this episode, I thought to myself, Sharrona, if you had a child with a white man and you and that white man split up, would you go out of your way to expose that child to the white side of his or her family? And without any real deep thought, my answer was no. And I know my answer may seem irresponsible, but let me explain. For the most part, you guys, the black community is a very welcoming community. I mean, we welcome everybody in. I know all of us have grown up with a white boy or a white girl that we went to high school with or elementary school with that just hung out with all the black kids. Just were welcomed into the black community. Our parents welcomed them. We fed them. We treated them like family. And I'm sorry for all of my white listeners who are about to hear me say this, but the white community, not so much. And as a mother, when I think about what I've wanted for my children, exposing them to anything that I feel could possibly damage them or stunt their growth or hurt their self-esteem in any way, especially at a young age, I'm not doing it. I wanted my children to feel safe. I wanted my children to feel loved. I wanted my children to feel protected. And when I put myself in Jasmine's mom's shoes, I got it. But here's the thing. Our children would still grow up not being fully exposed to what and who makes them who they are. More than anything, children want to belong. And it is our responsibility as parents to help them navigate that, no matter what race we are. As adults, I get it. It is much easier for us to explore life from our places of comfort. But when raising multicultural children, it is our responsibility to step into the possibly unknown for the sake of helping our children develop their identity. We must step out of the comfort zone. Number 2, we judge. I want to do a continuation from number 1. In number 1, I talk about how welcoming the black community is, and we are. But recently, when I was sharing my excitement about releasing this episode to a really good friend of mine, she brought it to my attention that she felt the black community was more welcoming to white people than we were to biracial people. And here's her reasons. She shared that when biracial people do not instantly choose their black side, we shun them because we think that they don't want to be black. They want to enjoy the privileges of being white. So we keep them at a distance. As black folks, we other them. Jasmine shared in this episode how at times she felt really judged by the black community when she didn't always understand how Black people functioned in different ways. She was exposed to different foods. She was exposed to a different community. The community with which she lived in was a predominantly white and Asian community. She mentioned that she dated the only other Black guy that was at her high school. My friend expressed that we don't always take into consideration the exposure that biracial kids may have. In the Black community, we just assume that because they're not hanging around Black people, existing in the Black community, and understand everything about Black culture, that they don't want to be Black. It's got to be a tough place for biracial people to be, especially when we don't take consideration to what's been exposed. After this episode, if you're listening on Spotify, I'm going to leave a question for you to answer in regards to, do we judge? I always like to leave my listeners with homework sometimes in these 3 things. So in this episode, I encourage you to go to Spotify and answer the question. And Black people, let me know. Do we judge? Number 3, Biracial by Stephanie Lynn. My father is Black and my mother is white. And though we live in a new generation, I still find myself having to give explanations on how all this works. The ignorance of race really hurts. No, this is not good hair. No, you can't touch it. Keep your fucking hands to yourself. No, I'm not Mexican or Puerto Rican. Stop guessing above all else. I'm Black like you, and I'm white like her. I'm flesh and blood, not claws and fur. But see, you don't want to accept me, of course, unless I'm President Obama or Halle Berry. Did you know they were mixed? Or were you so deep in the limelight you don't care? Because on the streets, I'm not considered Black, no matter how coarse my hair. I use relaxers too. I've had my hair braided. I've been called nigger. I've been followed in stores. I've been sent to the end of the line for no reason. Denied friendship for seasons. And wouldn't you know, being Black was the reason. But it's not just enough to gain any trust. I don't look anything like white people, so I don't even try. Only hope for full acceptance from the other side. And yet still, I'm left feeling quite empty inside. Where the hell do I fit in? Who's on my side? Since claiming Black or white is considered a crime. This was when I decided to become an advocate of self. I found who I am. Didn't need any help. I don't let my race define who I am, but I embrace both my colors. They work well with each other. And that's something society just will not understand. That's it for this episode of These 3 Things podcast. I appreciate you guys listening to my good friend Jasmine share her story about being biracial. I will see you guys next time on a new episode on These 3 Things.